Hello, learners. So, today, continuing with our module 4, we move on to cultural practices affecting reproductive and child health. Here, we focus on the influence of cultural practices. In our previous lectures, we have explored gender inequality, the role of men, and legal aspects of reproductive health. Today, we shift to culture, which profoundly shapes health behaviors, beliefs, and outcomes. Some cultural practices support well being, while others create barriers or directly harm health. Understanding these practices is essential for designing effective programs that respect cultural contexts while challenging harmful traditions. Culture is one of the most important determinants of health, influencing how people perceive illness, pregnancy, childbirth, and family planning. It provides shared norms and practices that can either support or hinder health outcomes. Some cultural practices, such as community support during childbirth, are beneficial. Others, like child marriage or son preference, are harmful and perpetuate inequality. Recognizing this dual role is very important for developing cultural sensitive but right based health interventions. Now, not all cultural practices are harmful. Some play a very supportive role in reproductive and child health. Community support during pregnancy and childbirth, where elders or relatives assist, provide emotional and practical help and support. Traditional diets, rich in nutrition, may benefit the pregnant women and children. Rituals such as postnatal seclusion, when practiced in moderation, can allow mothers to rest and bond with the newborn. Acknowledging positive practices helps build trust and engagement while addressing harmful ones. Many cultural practices, however, are harmful and deeply entrenched, like child marriages. They force young girls into early motherhood and with grave health and social consequences. Dowry practices create financial stress and can lead to domestic violence. Female genital mutilation, practiced in some regions, cause lifelong harm. Gender based taboos restrict women's mobility, diet, or access to healthcare during critical times like menstruation and pregnancy. These harmful practices violate rights and compromise RCH outcomes. Child marriage remains a widespread cultural practice, particularly in rural and marginalized communities. It often forces girls into pregnancy before their bodies are mature and ready for the process, increasing risks of maternal and infant morbidity and mortality. Early marriages also denies girls the rights to education and perpetuates cycles of poverty and inequality. Despite legal prohibitions, social acceptance and economic pressure sustain this practice. Eliminating child marriage is very critical for improving reproductive health and advancing gender equality. The dowry system, though illegal in India, remains a widespread cultural practice. Families of brides often face enormous financial burdens, leading to indebtedness. Women face violence, harassment, or even death if dowry expectations are unmet. The system reinforces the perception of women as financial liabilities, deepening gender inequities. Dowry practices undermine women's autonomy and well being, making their eradication essential for reproductive justice and gender equality. Female genital mutilation involves partial or total removal of external female genitalia for non medical reasons. practiced in some communities in Africa, the Middle East, and parts of India, it is rooted in beliefs about purity, marriageability, and control of female sexuality. Female genital mutilation causes severe physical pain, infections, childbirth complications, and long term psychological trauma. It is internationally recognized as a violation of human rights. Eliminating this process requires culturally sensitive advocacy and legal enforcements. Menstrual taboos are common in many cultures. Women and girls are often restricted from entering kitchens, temples, or participating in daily activities. There have been examples where, in some parts of rural India, even separate menstrual huts or spaces are built where the females of the household are expected to live during the week of menstruation. And this weakens their bond with the families and causes isolation to them. Some are prohibited from certain foods or forced to isolate themselves. These taboos perpetuate stigma, shame, and misinformation about menstruation. They also affect dignity, nutrition, and access to education or healthcare. Breaking menstrual taboos requires education, awareness, and cultural transformation towards respect and equality. Postpartum seclusion is practiced in many cultures, where mothers are isolated for weeks after delivery. On one hand, it provides rest and protection from heavy work, which can be beneficial. While on the other hand, extreme restrictions on diet, hygiene, or social contact can harm maternal and infant health. For example, withholding nutrition or limiting medical care during seclusion undermines recovery. Balancing of this cultural support with safe practices is very crucial for maternal well being. Food taboos during pregnancy are another common cultural practice. Pregnant women may be told to avoid foods like eggs, fish, or bananas due to myths about fetal size or complications. There can be foods which can be classified into hot foods or cold foods, and mother may not be allowed to take the one which is preferred by the family as harmful for the fetus. Such restrictions can lead to nutritional deficiencies and maternal malnutrition. While some practices are harmless, others deprive women of essential nutrients at a critical time. Addressing food taboos requires culturally sensitive nutrition education that respects beliefs while promoting health and stopping of harmful practices. In many cultures, home deliveries are preferred due to tradition, trust in local birth attendants, or distrust from the former healthcare system. While skilled birth attendants can provide safe care, many home deliveries are conducted without trained personnel or emergency support. This increases the risk of maternal and neonatal morbidity and mortality. Promoting institutional deliveries must therefore respect cultural preferences while addressing concerns about hospitals and improving the quality of care of services. Son preference is a deeply rooted cultural norm in many societies, driven by inheritance systems, economic expectations, and social status. This preference leads to discriminatory practices such as sex selective abortions, neglect of the girl child, and differential access to food and education or healthcare for the girls in comparison to the boys. The result is skewed sex ratios and systemic gender inequality. Addressing son preference requires legal enforcements, economic reforms, and cultural transformation towards valuing daughters equally to sons. Cultural beliefs strongly influence breastfeeding practices. In some communities, colostrum is discarded as impure or bad milk. which delays initiation of breastfeeding and introduces pre-lactal feeds like honey or water or other types of solutions in which the family believes. These are given to the newborn as a part of rituals and because the infant is not being fed by breast milk. This increases the risk of infection. There is nutrition deficiency and calorie deficiency, which is faced by the neonate. While some rituals around lactation promote bonding, others undermine infant nutrition. Addressing these beliefs requires community education that respects traditions while promoting exclusive breastfeeding as a gold standard of the infant health. Traditional birth attendants figures in many communities. They are trusted beings which are the first ones to call once a female is ready to give birth. They provide emotional support, continuity of care, and cultural sensitivity during childbirth. However, most TBAs lack formal training to handle complications such as hemorrhage or obstructive labor. While their role is valuable, reliance solely on traditional birth attendants can delay life saving care. Integrating these TBAs into formal health systems through training and referral linkages can balance the cultural trust with medical safety and prevention. Cultural rituals around fertility reflect the high value placed on reproduction. Couples may be encouraged to perform religious or community rituals to conceive. While harmless in some contexts, such practices often create pressure on women to prove fertility, leading to stigma if they are unable to conceive. Infertility is frequently blamed on women, despite medical causes being equally likely in men. Addressing this requires education and reducing stigma while replacing cultural practices. Abortion is often stigmatized due to cultural and religious beliefs. Even when legal, women may face judgment, secrecy, or exclusion from their families and communities. Fear of stigma leads many to seek unsafe abortions, increasing health risks. Addressing abortion stigma requires public education, supportive laws, and respectful health services. Recognizing abortion as a health service and right is essential for protecting women's lives and dignity. Newborn care is influenced by cultural practices, some beneficial and others harmful. Oil massage and protective rituals provide comfort and bonding, while early bathing may increase the risk of hypothermia. Prelactal feeding undermines breastfeeding, while charms or amulets may replace medical care. Programs must respect positive practices while discouraging those that endanger the health of the newborn. This balance builds trust and ensures healthier outcomes in infants. Contraception use is often restricted by cultural barriers. Myths that contraceptives cause infertility or illness create fear. Male dominance in decision making means women may lack autonomy to use contraception. Community disapproval reinforces these barriers, particularly for unmarried or young women. Addressing these challenges requires education, community engagement, and promoting shared decision making. Only by shifting norms can contraceptive use become widely accepted. Religious beliefs strongly influence reproductive practices. Some faiths encourage large families, discourage contraception, or prohibit abortion, shaping community behaviors. At the same time, many faith based organizations provide health services, advocacy, and support for women. Recognizing this dual influence is important. Engaging of those religious leaders in promoting health and rights can be powerful strategy, but interventions must balance respect with a community to equity and evidence-based care. Cultural gender roles assign caregiving to women and decision making to men, limiting women's autonomy in reproductive health. These roles perpetuate inequality, where women are responsible for family health but lack the power to make decisions about contraception, delivery, or healthcare access. Engaging both men and women in transforming these roles is essential for achieving of gender equity in reproductive health. Challenging stereotypes is an important factor which is a part of providing these services. Adolescents can particularly be affected by cultural practices. Early marriage push girls into pregnancy before they are ready, endangering their health. Cultural resistance to sexuality education leaves adolescents uninformed about contraception or safe practices. Stigma around adolescent reproductive health deters young people from seeking care. These cultural barriers create a vulnerable generation with unmet needs, making adolescent friendly interventions a priority in reproductive health programs. Modern health systems often face resistance due to cultural attachments to traditional practices. Families may mistrust hospitals or perceive institutional care as disrespectful of customs. This tension creates barriers to utilization. Health system must therefore be culturally sensitive, integrating respectful practice and building trust with communities. Balancing of tradition with modern medicine ensures acceptance and sustainability of the health programs. Addressing harmful practices requires multi pronged strategies. Community education helps shift norms by addressing myths and promoting health equity. Legal enforcement is very necessary for practices like child marriage or female genital mutilation. Empowering women with knowledge, skill, and economic independence strengthens their ability to challenge harmful traditions and practices. Change is most effective when communities are engaged and supported in transforming their own practices. Health providers are the front line of addressing cultural practices. They must respect cultural sensitivity, but they have to build trust while also identifying harmful practices that endanger health of the community. Counseling families with empathy and evidence is more effective than confrontation. Providers can serve as change agents, guiding communities towards safer practices while preserving dignity and respect. Training in cultural competence is therefore essential for reproductive health professionals. Community leaders, elders, religious figures, and influencers hold significant power in shaping cultural norms. Their endorsement or their opposition can make or break interventions. Mobilizing leaders as allies ensures broader acceptance of health programs. Leaders can advocate for abandoning harmful practices while promoting positive traditions. Engaging them as partners is a culturally respectful and sustainable strategy for change. Successful interventions show that cultural practices can be transformed. Community led campaigns have reduced female genital mutilation in several African countries. Legal and advocacy movements have significantly reduced child marriages in many parts of the world. Menstrual hygiene promotion in schools has improved attendance and reduced stigma. These successes illustrate that change is possible when communities are engaged, supported, and empowered. Balancing cultural respect with human rights is delicate but necessary. Programs must respect cultural identities to avoid alienation, but they cannot compromise in protecting health and rights. Finding common ground means working with cultural frameworks to promote safe alternatives while firmly opposing practices that violate dignity. Respect and rights are not mutually exclusive. They must be integrated for sustainable progress of the health programs in the community. The future lies in strengthening culturally competent care that respects traditions while protecting their rights. Policies must integrate community voices, ensuring interventions are contextually appropriate. Long term change requires cultural transformation towards equality, dignity, and evidence based practices. By combining respect with advocacy, future strategies can create environments where culture becomes a force for health rather than harm. To summarize, culture profoundly shapes reproductive and child health outcomes. While some practices provide support and continuity, others, such as child marriage, dowry, and son preference, directly harm health and rights. Addressing harmful practices requires community participation, community education, legal enforcement, and empowerment of women and adolescents. Positive practices must be preserved while harmful ones are transformed. The key is engaging culture as both a challenge and an opportunity in reproductive health. In conclusion, cultural practices play a defining role in reproductive and child health. While culture provides identity and continuity, harmful practices undermine health and dignity. Transforming these practices is essential for equality, dignity, and justice. The path forward lies in respectful dialogue, community empowerment, and legal and policy reforms that protect rights. By engaging culture as a partner rather than an obstacle, we can create environments where reproductive and child health thrive well. So, this is all for today. Next time, in lecture number 30, we deal with media and communication strategies for promoting RCH awareness. Thank you.